What up, guys? It's your boy Matt from RamseyVoice.com, and I want to teach you how to sing better today. Better today, better tomorrow, better this year and next year, all the time. And what I'm going to do is we're going to take a very magical journey today, and I'm going to give you all of the information that I know about how to become a better singer. I'm going to lay it all out for you, give everything away that I know for free. I'm going to give you a ton of exercises. And in return, I want you guys to watch this whole video. And rather than getting overwhelmed, I want you guys to just get curious. So you can try to go ahead and follow along with all of the exercises. You can just watch the entire thing just to learn about kind of like the order of vocal progression that we're going to do today. But I want you to try something, and I actually want you to be a little bit curious about a specific section of this. Maybe it's the very first section. Maybe it's the third one. Maybe we're talking about breathing high notes, whatever it happens to be. I want you to get curious about that, and I want you to start working on it in your voice. And a little bit goes a long way. So just do a little bit every day, and I promise you're going to see a lot of improvement with your voice. Make sure that you look out for 3 major things that we're going to get out of today's lesson. We're going to look at the secret to hitting high notes, how to get the perfect vocal tone, and how to choose songs that fit your voice. That and a whole lot more is coming up right now. Now, before we jump in, you know what you have to do. You have to smash that like button, comment with the next kind of reaction or the next kind of video that you want to see me do. By the way, I have a reaction YouTube channel. You should check it out. There's a lot of great stuff on there too. Probably learn a lot about vocal technique just by hearing me talk about it. But today is about action. And the next action that I need you to do is hit subscribe and turn on notifications for this channel. Or if you find everything in this section really helpful, check out my complete singing course, Master Your Voice. It's got all of this information plus a ton more, really hands-on, get down to it, expand your vocal range, hit higher notes, gain vocal control, all that good stuff. But for right now, let's jump on in. I've divided today's journey into 10 different sections. And in each one of those sections, we're gonna kind of build on the last one. So at first, maybe you just want to watch this whole thing in order and work along with everything. Or like the next time or the second viewing that you watch this, maybe you can be like, well, I already got that part, so I'm just going to skip to the second section. That's totally fine. But we have to start off with posture. And we're starting off with posture because posture is just one of the easiest places to start. I've seen people who they have bad singing posture, and I fix one thing and it's like their entire voice just opens up. I'm like, and it's like, whoa, dude, that was crazy. They're like, okay, when can I come back? And I'm like, okay, next week. So we have to get started off with your posture. And we're not just going to talk about your body posture. We're also going to talk about the posture of your throat or your larynx or your voice box. And we're also going to talk about the posture of your tongue. So we're going to start off with the body. Okay, so the right way to get the perfect posture for singing is to have the tall posture. We call it the tall posture because when you have this posture, you'll notice that people look like they're standing tall. In other words, they're not like slouching or anything like that. Everything's nice and tall. And the way that you get this is you bring your feet to about shoulder width apart. And if you bring your feet to about shoulder width apart, you'll notice that your feet are in line with your hips and your hips are in line with your shoulders, and everything's kind of like in one straight line. And next, what you're going to do is you're going to keep your chest comfortably lifted. Now, I'm not saying like artificially lifted, like you're like being pulled by a string towards the ceiling. I've had voice teachers growing up tell me stuff like that. It's stupid. It doesn't mean anything. All we want to do is basically just keep the chest nice and comfortably lifted so that we're not actually slouching. So we're going to keep that nice and tall. My feet, my hips, and my shoulders are all in one line, and everything is nice and straight. I'm also going to keep a gaze or a stare into a place that's like directly in front of me. So I'm not looking down too much. I'm not looking back too much. I'm just keeping it straightforward. And just so that you can see what it'll look like from the side is I'll turn to my side, and you can also see that this is pretty straight too. Now, it may even feel like you're kind of like leaning back too much, but this is why it's really, really important that you check yourself in a mirror. So just step in front of a mirror, turn to your side, and you'll see whether it's straight or not. So I can do that same thing like this. Yeah, I can see that that's pretty straight. Now, the next posture that we need to talk about is your laryngeal posture. Now, a lot of people talk about this like it's like the last thing to look at with your voice, and that's for good reason, because the larynx posture for beginning singers, it's either like really, really high or it's really, really low, but it's usually not in the middle, and that's totally fine. But for right now, just feed your brain with the knowledge that eventually we want to get your larynx to a place where it's totally relaxed and resting. So what do I mean by your larynx? Your larynx is your voice box. And your voice box is going to be the cartilage in your throat here that actually houses your vocal cords. So your vocal cords are like two little membranous strips of muscle and membrane that sit inside of the actual voice box. So all of your voice comes from right here. None of it comes from your chest or your head or your eyes or your ears or anything like that. All of it comes directly from your vocal cords and then gets resonated up there. And some people feel like a lot of resonance in their chest, in their eyes and stuff like that. And that's fine. That's called sympathetic resonance. It's totally different. But your larynx is the voice box that holds the vocal cords. And that's where all the sound comes from. Now, because that's the source of all of the sound, if my larynx is too low, you can hear that it's too low.
Or if it's too high, you can hear that it's too high.
So we want to keep this guy resting at all times. And one of the biggest things that speech level singing technique has going for it is that it always wants you to maintain like a really resting larynx position. And the way that they preach to do that is to just go back to your speaking level. So if I have to sing in like a high note, like an ah, rather than dropping my larynx artificially or raising my larynx too much, I'll just I'll just say it and my larynx will actually be in the right position. Great. Now, the third issue of posture that I want you to take a look at is the posture of your tongue. Now, a lot of people, when they're singing, they're going to do strange things with their tongue. They pull their tongue back too much. They put the tip of their tongue too far forward, and that can sound kind of funny and silly too. The tongue and the larynx are often quite connected. And so you'll notice, like, if someone pulls their tongue back, their larynx will drop. So I'll go from an ah to an oh. And so I pulled my tongue back, my larynx follows it. It just sounds really silly. And that's because my tongue nor my larynx is relaxed. Everything is like really, really tight because I'm retracting it. Or, you know, some people will actually push their tongue forward. And you might imagine that has the opposite effect. It actually brings the larynx up too high. So if I'm singing, and then my tongue is too far forward and it's not relaxed and my larynx is too high. Again, everything is connected to everything in the voice. So what you want to do to keep your tongue relaxed is you want to, again, just go back to the way that you speak it. So if you say ah, you can just say and hold the word ah, and just memorize where your tongue is and sing it just like that. So like a ah, my tongue didn't go too far back. Oh, it didn't go too far forward. Just stayed right in the right place. And I'll give you one more little tip that you can check out with your tongue position. There's a little muscle underneath your tongue that you can actually feel. It's called the digastric muscle. So take your thumb and place it underneath your chin right here and swallow. Now, as you swallow, you'll probably feel like a little like muscle press against your thumb as you're swallowing. And what that is that's kind of like the root of your tongue, or that's like some of the muscle that controls the root of your tongue. And what you want to do is you want to not feel that muscle push down on your thumb as you're singing. So a really great exercise that you can do is you can choose like a specific sound, as long as it's probably not like an N or an L or a D sound where the consonants are going to be very tongue activated. Instead, let's just choose like an open vowel, like an ah, and place your thumb underneath here and see if you feel for any tension in that muscle. So ideally you want to feel nothing, like an ah, but if you feel a you know you're in the wrong place. So that's just like a little cheat for you. Fantastic job, guys. Okay, in the next section, we're going to be talking about breath control. Now, this is something that gets talked about so much by so many singing teachers, and it drives me crazy. They waste weeks and sometimes months just addressing breath control with the singer, and I totally get it. It's because sometimes when you have the singer in front of you and you have no idea how to fix their problems, you just go and you teach breath support and you teach more breath control. Anyway, end of rant. The biggest thing and one of the saving graces of more modern singing techniques is that they understand that breath is just a part of the equation. It's an important part of the equation, but it's not the only part of the equation. So if you're a little bit curious as to why that is, I've got lots of great videos that address breathing for singing. But right now, I'm just gonna focus on actually giving you what you need to know about perfecting your breath control. Now, the right way to breathe for singing is called the diaphragmatic breath. Now, you've probably heard the terms like singing from the diaphragm or like breathing from the diaphragm before. And all that means is that basically rather than raising or manipulating different parts of my body whenever I breathe in, like if I breathe into my shoulders, like clavicular breathing, like I'm raising everything and I get a really, really shallow breath. Or some people will like breathe from their chest like that, or coastal or intercostal breathing, like breathing from the ribs. In this particular case, it can get really confusing. All I really want you to do when you breathe in is make sure that you're not moving anything except for your stomach, except for your belly. So I'm going to turn to my side so that you can actually see this. But basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to inhale in a way that none of this moves and my stomach comes out. So as I inhale, my stomach expands. And as I exhale, my stomach contracts. And the reason why that is because the diaphragm is like this bowl-shaped muscle separating, a couple different of my body cavities. It's attached to the bottom of my lungs. In order to inhale, the diaphragm contracts and it flattens. It pulls my lungs open and I breathe in air. Now, the consequence of that is that there's a little less room in my body cavity because it's so full of air. And so my stomach actually comes out. So a lot of people will like inhale like this, and that's like the worst thing that you can do because you're adding so much tension to your voice. You can even hear it. Like if I breathe in like that, like all of a sudden I have a lot of tension in my voice. However, if I have that right diaphragmatic breath, all of a sudden I can just talk and 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 talk, and I'm totally fine. Now, I'm going to give you one exercise that you can use every day to master this diaphragmatic breath. It's a really, really easy one, but it gets really fun. Really fun, really fast. Like all good exercises that start easy and then you can just make them really difficult and really complex as they become a little bit easier for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the Farinelli breathing exercise. And it's quite simple. What we're going to do is we're going to inhale for a count. We're going to hold the breath for a count, and then we're going to exhale for a count. So in this particular case, we're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, and out for 4. And I'm going to just time this on my watch. You can look at a clock, set a metronome to 60 beats per minute. Whatever it is, it's going to be 1 second per count. So in this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to inhale diaphragmatically. So my stomach is going to come out. And then I'm going to hold for 4. And then I'm going to breathe out for 4. Now, a lot of people ask me, should I be breathing in through my nose or should I be breathing in through my mouth? Well, let's think about that. When you're performing on stage, are you going to be breathing through your mouth or breathing through your nose? Probably through your mouth. So I would actually always recommend breathing through your mouth whenever you're training for singing. It's important that you're not inhaling in a very loud way, but rather than inhaling like that through your nose, you're just not going to get as deep of a breath that way. And the mouth is just a lot more effective at getting a lot of breath really quickly. And it's really good at helping you get that proper volume of air that you need. So let's go ahead and try the exercise. Again, your stomach is going to expand on the inhale. You're going to hold it there or sustain the breath for a 4 count. And then you're going to exhale and the stomach's going to come in for a 4 count. So let's try it together. We'll go in 1, 2, 3. In, hold, 2, 3, 4, out. So again, we're in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Now here's where it can get really interesting. You in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and then you in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5. So you're basically adding on a count every time that you do this. And you can try this and you can go as high as you want. Oftentimes I'll challenge my students to get to an 8, 9, or a 10 count just in a week. So see if you can screw around with this and see if you can get it to a 10 count. But you never want to feel uncomfortable. So just keep pushing yourself to the point that you feel the least bit of discomfort, and that's your count. So let's say that you can only get to 7. You're in for 7, hold for 7, out for 7. Just make sure that you're working back up to that and then continuing to try past that a little bit every time. All right, guys, now that you have your posture and your breathing down, it's time to train your ear. So here in the third section, we're going to talk a little bit about ear training. Now, ear training is one of those things that it doesn't get a whole lot of fanfare from singers and from singing teachers. People don't talk about ear training it's, oh my God, everything turned around. It's it's probably the least sexy subject in singing, as opposed to like belting and whistle register, which are like some of the sexiest. But ear training is super, super important, especially if you're just starting out. So what is ear training? Ear training basically means that you're getting your larynx or your vocal cords to agree with your ear. Now, a lot of beginning singers, like if you give them a scale like an ah, then they'll go like ah, or they're just not sure where to go. And what that shows me is that they just don't have the right amount of ear training. And so whenever I see a student like that, there's a lot of things that we can try to improve that particular person's ear training. It's not necessarily that they're singing out of tune per se, it's just that they can't get their voice box in their ear to actually agree on what the note is. So their ear hears an ah, but they're just not sure how to get their voice there. They're like, and usually that's just a lack of experience. So let me give you a really, really simple trick that you can use to actually get your ear trained better for some of those weird notes, if that's an issue for you. Now, there's a lot of different things that you can do. One of the simplest I've found is just giving yourself a little bit more feedback, giving yourself a little bit more of a chance to hear what you're actually singing. And a really simple way to do that is basically just cupping your hands behind your ears. You'll notice that by just cupping your hands behind your ears, like giving yourself Mickey Mouse ears, you can actually hear yourself so much better. So whereas like before it was an ah, I'm getting like a ah, like I hear everything. It's like surround sound. I really can't get away from it. For some people, they might find that just that little change, it's like, oh wow, I was really off, so I really need to fix it here. That alone may not be enough for the ear training, in which case I always recommend that my beginning singers learn solfege. Solfege or solfeggio, whatever you want to call it, is basically just the system of assigning each note of the scale with an Italian sound or an Italian syllable or word. So you've probably seen it from like The Sound of Music or like a Bruno Mars song. It doesn't do it in solfege, he does it on 1, 2, 3. So it'd be like kind of a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now me personally, I'm a big fan of a movable do structure. If you've heard of the terms fixed do and movable do, I'm more into the movable do stuff. That may be above your level of knowledge right now. If you've heard both of those terms, just understand that I'm going to be showing and demonstrating these exercises in a movable do structure. And that's because I find that it's so much more helpful to actually help students understand the difference is in between certain notes or individual scale degrees. So we're going to just take the major scale, and we're just going to assign an Italian syllable or an Italian word to each one of those. In this particular case, we're in the key of D, so D would be do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do. And the reason that this can be so helpful is whereas before you might do an exercise that's like a where I'm singing the exact same thing over and over again. With solfege, it's like I'm actually identifying each note as its own individual thing. And if I do that enough, I can really train my ear to actually hear the differences between those. So again, in the key of D, it's going to be like a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And coming down from the top, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And there's lots of fantastic exercises you can do with this. One of my favorites is adding one each time you do it. Be like a do, re, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, fa, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, fa, mi, do. So I basically got every single note, and I'm actually also expanding the length of the phrase. So it starts off really short, and then by the end I'm like, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, fa, mi, do. Like I'm singing a lot of notes there. And again, this is such a good ear training device because you're basically learning to sing each individual note as it is in a relationship with other notes. So rather than singing nay, nay, nay. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just singing that note over and over again. Instead, I'm identifying that as do, which is like the most important, the tonic. It's just like right there. That's the key of the phrase that I'm singing in, and that's home. And I can always kind of relate to where my home is. So I could sing a so, do, la, do, mi, do. Like, I can start to learn where those relationships are. Now, the last section of ear training that I want to talk about is not so much like an exercise that I can give you right now, but I would definitely recommend that if you're a singer, learn a musical instrument. I cannot tell you how many singers I have had that are really, really good singers, but they don't play any instruments. And because of that, they're always going to be dependent on other musicians to make their vision come true. Not only that, it's also really good to kind of like understand the way that music is formed on other instruments so that you can relate it back to your voice. Like, all the time, I'm giving students the example of like, if you're like pulling chest voice, if you're singing with too much chest up into your head voice, it's like you're singing with too much weight. You're like, ah, I'm like pushing into it. However, I'll always give the example of like, oh, it's just like you're playing like the thickest string on the guitar, but you're not actually thinning out to the next string. Well, the reason that I was able to come up with that analogy is because I'm also a guitar player and I can also play piano. So there's just like limitless, like deep knowledge that you can get from playing another instrument in addition to learning to sing. So pick one up and, you know, you've got a lifelong best friend. Great, guys. Now, the next section that I want to take you through is a warm-up. Now, this is where we're really going to start talking about kind of like the nuts and bolts of actually learning to sing better. You've got your posture, you've got the right breath control, you've started to train your ear. Now let's actually start warming up your voice. And my absolute favorite warm-up of all time, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, is the octave and a half lip trill. And the octave and a half lip trill is basically where you're singing an octave and a half scale, but you're flopping your lips together to create it. Now, people message me all the time like, I cannot get my lips to flop like yours. It's really simple. For some people have a harder time with it than others, but 9 times out of 10, this will work. You just take your 2 fingers on both sides, place them in the middle of your cheeks, and flop your lips together like this. I'm not pushing, I'm not pulling, I'm just holding. And I'm blowing a little bit of air to make my lips flop together. Now, it's really important that you remember that you need to let your lips actually flop on top of each other. If your lips are too far apart, then blowing more air is not going to help. However, if your lips are too tight, that's not going to work either. So the lips have to be loose and evenly vibrating on top of each other. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sing a triplet, 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 done. A scale, an octave and a half, on the lip trill. So in my voice, it's going to kind of like a... Guys, you can start following along. We're going to start down here on the B flat 2. So like a... Excellent job, guys. Now, ladies, let's do the same thing. We're going to start at this F3. So it'd be like a... By the way, I'm just not using this on my lips because I have to play the piano at the same time. If I didn't, I absolutely would use my fingers because I found that it's actually really difficult to get the right sound and the right feeling for this exercise if you're just blowing it through your lips. So let's do that same thing. Ladies, we'll be right here. One more. Great job, guys. Great. In the next section, I'm going to talk to you about singing in different vocal registers. Now, what do I mean by different vocal registers? Well, different vocal registers basically just means the different ways that the vocal cords vibrate. Now, if you've seen my head voice versus falsetto video, you'll understand that what I'm actually talking about here is how much the vocal cords are vibrating to each other and how thick that contact between them is. So for some singers, like they'll sing in like chest voice, and in chest voice, the vocal cords are actually closing quite a bit. They're closing very thickly. In head voice, they're closing very thinly, and it's just like the very outer edges of the vocal cords are vibrating. Regardless, you can actually feel the different vocal registers in a really simple way. Just place your hand on your chest and say, hi. Now, as you say hi, you'll probably notice that there's a little bit of vibration against your hand. And that vibration comes as a sympathetic resonance from the vocal cords. You're not actually feeling your singing voice down here. You're just feeling some of the resonance of it. But most people actually feel a good bit of vibration in their chest when they're singing on low notes. So like an ah, you're going to feel a lot of resonance against your hand here. Now, to feel head voice, our higher vocal register, place your hand on the back of your hand on the back of your head, and go wee. Now, as you go from a really high note to a low note, you'll probably feel that there's a lot of vibration against your hand when you're singing from the high one, wee. And as you're going down, you may even feel that the resonance starts to kind of shift back down to the bottom part of your voice. So what you've just done is you felt the difference between chest voice and head voice. And it's really important that you sing in both of these vocal registers when you're learning how to sing. So I'm going to give you two fantastic exercises to find these different vocal registers. So we're going to start off by finding your chest voice register. Now, as I mentioned, you're probably going to feel a lot of resonance against your hand as you're singing this exercise. And this exercise that we're going to do is we're just going to do a 5-tone scale at the bottom part of your voice, and you're just going to say the word gug, gug, gug on each note as you sing it. So you can place your hand on your chest as you sing this. Guys, we're going to start down here on a D, so we're going to go like a gug, 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 gug. Let's move up. Gug, 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 gug. Gug, 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 gug. And as you sing each one of those notes, it's really important that you feel some of that vibration against your hand. Because if you don't, there's a possibility that you're singing those all too breathy. Ga, 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 ga. And if it's too breathy, then you're not really in your chest voice. This is more of an issue for ladies, and ladies, we're gonna see that right here as we start on the G3. So again, really, really important that you're feeling a lot of vibration against your hand. So let's do a ga, 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 ga. Moving up. Ga, 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 ga. Ga, 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 ga. Again, noticing that none of those was really breathy. I was just kind of like saying the word ga, 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 and it turned out fantastic. So now that you found your chest voice, let's do the same thing, but this time we're gonna go ahead and start finding your head voice. So one of my favorite exercises for finding your head voice is kind of like this hooty sound, like we did a wee before. I'm gonna go ahead and give you an exercise that you can find that head voice very easily. Guys, we're gonna start at the top and we're gonna do an octave arpeggio heading downwards, like a wee, 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 wee. But we're just gonna repeat that twice. So kind of like a wee, 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 as I bash my microphone. Let's move up. Wee, 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 wee. Again. Wee, 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 wee. Again, it's really important that that first note is wee. It's just very light. If you feel tempted to wee, squeeze into it, you're in the wrong place. You want to keep that just as easy and as relaxed as you can. Wee. Ladies, let's do the same thing right here. Wee, 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 wee. Wee, 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 wee. Wee, 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 wee. Fantastic job, guys. Okay, so we found chest voice, we found head voice. Now, let's see if we can actually connect the two of them into a mixed voice. Now, what is mixed voice? Mixed voice basically means that rather than singing just like my vocal cords are super thick, or just like my vocal cords are super thin, like falsetto. Instead, it's like my vocal cords are vibrating evenly from the bottom to the top part of my voice. So this is kind of a difficult thing for a lot of beginning singers to try. But whenever you hear a singer that's singing a high note with a lot of power, most of the time, they're actually singing with their mixed voice. So like when you hear Sam Smith, oh, won't you stay with me? It just sounds really, really powerful and really beautiful. That's mixed voice, as opposed to stay with me, like Mickey Mouse. Instead, let's see if we can find this mixed voice in yours. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our trusty octave and a half scale. So that triplet, 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 triplet done scale. But this time we're gonna do that on gee, 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 like you're saying the word geese. So in my voice it'd be, for gentlemen, gee, 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 gee. Now notice I'm not pushing as I go towards the top. I'm just gee. I'm just allowing it. I'm not gee pushing, and I'm not gee in falsetto. I'm just saying the word. Gee, 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 gee. Gee, 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 gee. Now, ladies, let's do that same thing, but we're gonna start here on this F. So it'd be like a gee, 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 gee. Gee, 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 gee. Gee, 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 gee. Fantastic job, guys. If you don't find that mix right off the bat, that's totally fine. It takes a little bit of time. One thing that I can tell you that absolutely will help is trying to keep those feelings of those notes very spoken. Like you're saying, geese versus geese, I'm trying to sing. Don't try to sing, just try to speak it. Geese! And you'll be amazed at how much better it turns out. Great job, guys. So we've warmed up, we've sung low notes in our chest voice, we've sung high notes, we've sung in mixed voice. Now it's time for the uncomfortable truth. We have to sing with a better vocal tone. When singers are first starting off, it can be really, really easy to just sing too nasally or too breathy or too hooty or too pressed. Instead, we want to find a really nice, even sound that's very close to our speaking voice. So earlier I mentioned that you want to keep the sound of the exercises really similar to your speech level or very similar to your speaking voice. And what I mean by that is rather than singing like a gee, 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 singing really breathy or gee, 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 really nasal, instead the right vocal tone is somewhere in between. The right vocal tone is not too bright, it's not too dark, it's not too breathy, it's not too brassy. It's right in the middle. It's resonant and it's rich sounding. It's not too breathy. However, it's also very easily produced. So a lot of singers will have a hard time with this because they want to sound pretty. And at first, when you're finding the right vocal tone, you just have to find the right kind of a sound. And so in this particular case, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give you one simple exercise to find a great vocal tone. And this involves just speaking on the note. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our trusty 5-tone scale. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what we're gonna do is we're actually just gonna say the numbers on each one of those notes. So it'll be like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do that again here for guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Notice that I'm not too nasal, I'm not too breathy, I'm not too dumb or hooty. Instead, it's just right in the middle. It's just like I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the right vocal tone. And even if it sounds really plain and really dull to you now, there's actually a lot of power in developing that sound more with your voice. Ladies, let's do the same thing right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job, guys. Well, guys, you've done a fantastic job so far. You know, we've sung low notes, high notes, we've warmed up, you found the right posture, everything. But I cannot tell you how crucial it is to start singing without strain. As I mentioned a moment ago, it's really, really easy when you're first starting off with these exercises, especially if you're trying to learn to sing with a mixed voice, it's really easy to strain and tense on those top notes. Like a gee, 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 gee. It just feels really, really tight. And rather than it feeling really tight, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're not straining those notes too much. Now, I'm going to give you 2 things that you can check for to see if there's any strain in your voice. The first one is the simplest. Just watch yourself in a mirror as you sing. What's happening to your voice, to your throat, and to your mouth as you're singing upwards in your voice? This is especially true on higher notes. So you may see that you're that you're spreading the note really wide and things are getting kind of tense in your throat. This is a big no-no because the reason that you're straining up there is because things are uncomfortable. But things are also uncomfortable because you're straining. And so you're actually ruining some of those top notes by spreading the vowel too wide. Instead, really stay true to what that vowel is. For instance, I'm just saying the word on each one of those notes, and everything is staying exactly where it's supposed to be. The second thing that I want to show you how you can kind of start to measure for that tension is you can just take your thumb, press it underneath your jaw here, like I showed you earlier with your tongue position, and just measure for any tongue tension as you're singing upwards here. So you can feel like a you can absolutely feel that muscle pressing against your hand there as you start singing higher. Instead, you want to just keep that sounding just as even as possible, like a it always turns out better. Always. The second major area of singing without strain that I want you to think about is rather than reaching up for high notes, I want you to imagine that those high notes are below you. And this is a really, really like a psychological kind of hippie thing, but it absolutely works. So often I'll have students that are you can see from their body posture that they think that that's a high note. But I've got news for you. There's no high notes. There's no low notes in your voice. The vocal cords will stretch and they slacken. They stretch and they slacken. Just like a rubber band that I stretch in between my fingers, they're gonna stretch out or they're gonna thicken and slacken. And so nothing is actually moving up or down. Sometimes the larynx moves up and down and that will actually cause more tension. But if we're singing optimally and the vocal cords are basically just doing their job correctly, they're just gonna stretch outwards and they're gonna stretch back. That's it. So rather than thinking like I have to go up high, instead think down on those top notes. Notice that everything in my vocal tone changed. It's no longer and it sounds so much better that way. Ladies, you can try that same thing right here. Like a no. And you'll be amazed how this really, really simple mental kind of philosophical trick turns everything around for your singing. Great job, y'all. You guys are doing awesome. Now, the next step, now that you're singing high notes, you're singing without strain, hopefully. Probably not going to happen in one video, but, you know, a boy can dream. We want to start learning to sing with different vocal effects. The 2 main vocal effects that I want to teach you how to do today are singing legato and singing with vibrato. Legato is really simple. All it means is that you're singing smoothly. And by smoothly, you know, you can think about a lot of the vocal exercises that we do that are kind of punchy, like I'm kind of punching each one of those notes. And at the beginning, it can be really, really helpful for my voice to actually kind of punch each one of those notes. It gives me something to hold on to. It gives me some support. However, we don't want to sing that way long term because so many songs require that you sing much smoother than that. So you can try a very simple trick like taking out the G's. So let's say, for instance, I've mastered my then all I have to do is take out the G's and to turn it into a legato line, like a Ladies, you can try the same thing starting on this F, so like an Just learning to sing a little bit more legato will go such a long way. After all, no one wants to hear, oh, won't you stay with me? You want to, oh, won't you stay with me? You want that nice, even sound. So fantastic on that. The next vocal effect that I want to show you how to do today is vibrato. And vibrato is a big one because vibrato is one of those vocal effects that can make everyone sound like a world-class singer. And it's really easy to get started with. A lot of people have an overly wide vibrato, like an ah, or they can't get a vibrato at all, like a ah, like their voice is just stuck. But I'm gonna take a moment and just show you one exercise to kind of help you unlock that vibrato a little bit. Now, this is not true vibrato, but it absolutely leads to true vibrato. So if you're having a hard time finding that vibrato vocal effect, let's start off with just a simple exercise, and then we can start to go from there. So I'm gonna turn to my side, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 2 fingers and place them on my solar plexus. And that's about 2 inches above my belly button, just below my sternum here, my breastbone. So it's right about here. And if you know that you hit the right spot, when you can go ah, and if you press in and out like that, you'll actually hear your voice wobble. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. Now, a lot of people will actually not press hard enough. What we're looking for is we're actually looking for an in and out motion, like I'm actually pressing into my stomach in order to make that wobble. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna show you, in a good key for guys and girls, how to find some of that vibrato. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find one note, and I'm going to place my fingers here, and I'm gonna start to just pulse as I hold that note. So I'm just gonna try it on this, like an E, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the pulse to it. So it'd be like an E. Now that is super crazy. I know. Don't get me wrong. That is not beautiful vibrato. Like, put that on a record. No, that's not the end product. However, it is a really good start to help you find the vibrato. So what you want to do is you want to just start by pulsing here and then gradually start taking the fingers away. So like an E, and see if you can do it without the fingers. Don't be in any rush. Just try it on lots of different notes in your voice and just play around on ooh and E and ah, and just make sure that your voice is wobbling on each one, and you'll have vibrato before you know it. Fantastic job, guys. Now, a lot of people at this point will be like, okay, well, I can sing low notes, I can sing high notes, I can sing without strain, I can sing vocal effects, but how do I actually put this to use in my real voice? Well, what we need to do is we need to learn how to actually get into singing regularly, how to actually incorporate that into your life. So a great place to do that, obviously, shameless plug, is voice lessons. If you're taking a weekly lesson with a teacher that knows what they're doing every week, you've already got a built-in routine that's going to reward you for singing well and singing often, and also seeing improvements with your voice. A lot of people, they take one lesson, their world has changed, and then they go back out there into the world and they just keep doing the same things that they were doing before. Instead, what you want to do is you want to commit to, a certain period of time, a month, 6 months, a year, whatever, and just see where your voice goes from there. That's a great way to get started. If you don't have the money for lessons, check out complete singing courses, like my singing course, Master Your Voice. It's got 60 plus exercises, tons of vocal warm-ups, tons of singing opportunities, lots of songs to work on. Singing courses you want to check out rather than YouTube stuff, just because it has a structure. With YouTube stuff, you're gonna just click on whatever looks most interesting to you that day, and maybe that's not the issue that you actually need to work on. Like maybe belting looks really good to you, or whistle register really looks good to you, but you actually need to work on your chest voice. With a singing course, singing courses, especially the good ones, are ordered and structured in a way that are going to help you develop as you continue going, and that is an incredibly important part. Now, a lot of people ask me how often and how much they should warm up. Here's the easy answer. You want to warm up for 30 to 60 minutes a day. 30 if you're going to be performing on stage and you're going to be performing for a long time. But if you're actually working on your voice and you're trying to improve different things, 30 to 60 minutes is totally fine. You can do 20 to 30 minutes of warm-ups and then another 30 minutes in a song. And again, just making a habit out of this is probably the most important aspect of it. It doesn't even matter if you do 2 hours on Monday and then you don't do anything anything for the rest of the week, that's not going to help you get better. Instead, it's regular, even just marginal or even small improvements that you're doing every single day or even 5 times a week. You'll be amazed at how much you progress. Now, a lot of people ask me whether choirs are great places to improve your singing. And I would absolutely say that yes, choirs are a great way to learn how to sing. I always recommend choirs for kids that are younger, anywhere from like 5 up to 18, all the way through high school education. Being a part of a choir is a great thing. However, I wouldn't recommend only singing in choirs for your entire musical career. If you're really just absolutely dead set that choir is totally it for you, that's great. I'm happy for you. Stick with it because that's fantastic. But if you have any aspirations of being a solo singer or an artist or a singer-songwriter at all, you'll probably need to actually take some vocal lessons with a coach or need to explore learning how to sing in areas outside of choir. Why do I say that? Because I have so many students that used to sing in choir that now they have habits from choir that are really difficult to get rid of. The bottom line is with choirs, you've got 20 to 30 kids or 20 to 30 adults, whomever, females, males, mixed, whatever, and you're trying to make them all sound like one, or at least sound like that particular section, like the altos, the mezzos, and the tenors, etc. Whatever the situation is, you're trying to get those voices to blend. However, with solo singing, you don't want to sound blended. You want to sound unique. You want to sound like an individual. And so this kind of is a very, very easily blended sound. You put a ton of those voices together and it's going to sound fantastic. However, on a recording, like on a contemporary recording, like country music, rock, pop, R&B, whatever, it's going to sound really, really trained and it's going to sound really choral and often very breathy. So instead, you may want to work with someone that actually specializes in teaching more modern singing techniques. Well, guys, we've made it. We have made it to the last section of how to sing better. Right now, tomorrow, a year from now, you can keep coming back to this video because the last section that we're going to talk about is how to become an artist. And I spoke a little bit earlier about how to get started with singing, in lessons, complete singing course, YouTube, joining a choir, whatever. But now we're actually looking at making a career as a musician, as a singer. So how do you go about starting to do that? Well, the first thing that I would say is that you want to listen to great singers. And you want to listen to great singers because you need to always be inspired to be singing at your best. You may not always be getting that in a voice lesson, or you may not always be getting that in your choir. However, if you're always inspired by listening to great singers, you will always feel full of energy and always be willing to sing your best. Now, you also want to make sure that you're choosing songs that fit your voice. And choosing songs that fit your voice is actually more difficult than it sounds. In addition to making sure that the song is within your range, you also want to make sure that the song is also within your genre, that it sounds like it could come out of your voice. As much as I would love to be a gospel R&B singer, that's just not my voice. I've got this high tenor voice. It's built for pop, it's built for rock, but it is not built for R&B. It just doesn't have the vocal agility. So sometimes we have to be really honest with ourselves and talk about what our voice can sound good doing, and then picking songs that are within that genre. You also obviously want to make sure that the song that you're picking is within the range or the tone of voice that you're able to sing with very comfortably at first. You can always add 1 or 2 notes that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but definitely start within your comfort zone first. And the final thing that I would say in regards to becoming an artist is that you want to find your own vocal style. The only criticism that I have about certain singing techniques or learning to sing in school is that you sound a little bit generic. You sound a little bit trained. At a certain point, you want to get to the point where you can sound different from everyone else around you. And that just comes with time. That just comes with more and more experience with your own singing voice. And that's just something that you kind of have to explore and take risks with on your own. And one of the best ways to do that is working with these exercises. Work with your vocal tone. Work with singing low notes and high notes and mixed voice and legato and vibrato and finding all these things, and then search through them and actually see if you can find where you think your own individual vocal style is. And look at the other greats. See where you can make your own difference. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure you found it helpful. Make sure to like, comment with the next video that you want to see me do, and I'm always very happy to hear your feedback and take requests. Make sure that you also subscribe and turn on notifications for this channel. And if you found this helpful, and for a lot more information, check out my complete singing course, Master Your Voice.